Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and with the new year we have a new Hearthstone season, and a lot has changed in the meta since our last deck video, so I thought I would update you guys on the 5 best decks to climb with in both standard and wild. Whether it's getting to diamond for the first time, legend for the first time, you can take one of these decks and reasonably expect to climb with them. Except for maybe a couple exceptions. I'll mention them. It's more of a out there suggestion. And also as a reminder, today is the last day you vote for the Zeddy's our year-end award show or enter our giveaway. $200 worth of Hearthstone packs out of my pocket. All you have to do is like and comment on the video linked in the description below. Be subscribed to the channel and you'll have a chance to win. So, starting off with the standard decks. Ironically, almost all of the best decks that we're going to be offering here have been nerf decks from the last patch because, well, those nerfs weren't that effective except for taking Renathal out, as I only have one Renathal deck to even suggest, which is in Wild. Although Renathal Beast Hunter, if you still have that deck, is still performing well, and you can definitely play that and expect to climb with it. But speaking of Hunter, we're gonna go with the recently nerfed Shockspitter Hunter that has a beast flavor to it. It's not all in on the Shockspitter combo anymore, but that's there where you ramp this up, whether it be with the Candle Shot or your Bloodseeker. You also have minion pressure with Wild Spirit, Hydrolodon, and of course, like you'll see with most lists here, Astalor, which is just auto-include in most decks. It's a win condition in one card, but ultimately, yeah, you want to buff up your Shock Spirits and you can get more copies of them with Devour Swarm, and of course, insane damage for Bran. This is one of the best performing decks through Diamond through Legend, and it's not super hard to pilot, so I definitely will recommend it. Next, we have another deck that's relatively easy to play in Pure Paladin, another more mid-range aggression-based deck where you have tons of good early game with Divine Shields like Righteous Protector, Sanguine Soldier. You can give your minions Divine Shield and Rush with a Blood Matriarch Liadrin in particular. Once she's buffed, it gets a little bit out of control. And after you cast your Order in the Court, you're basically drawing 0 mana 5/5s. You can Blood Crusader out your Countess and get some random legendaries, and even have a board buff in here, Invigorating Cerebin, that buffs the board, as well as your hand and all the cards in your decks. A very snowbally deck that can really swarm, punish, and beat up on your opponents. And be noted, if you don't have like a Kotori Lightblade or a Blood Matriarch Liadrin, they don't seem to be too pivotal, so maybe just slot in some whatever 2-drops. It won't break the deck, but they are recommended. Next, we're gonna go on the 2 best performing decks at High Legend. These are the best decks in the game when played optimally. They fall off the lower ranks you get because they're not the easiest to play. First, we're gonna go with Casey's Miracle Rogue. He finished really High Legend with it. Tons of players have done very well with it. And yes, it has the nerf Sinstone Graveyard. Basically, Draka doesn't seem to be worth it anymore. Graveyard is, and it's not so much about blowing your opponent out on turn like 2 and 3, it's more like 4 and 5 now. And well, you cheat out your Scribbling Stenographer, you have Wild Pod Null to get out cheap, which you can just hold on to and save and drop it with your Potion Master Putricide to get concoctions right away when you're killing stuff and try and swarm your opponent down. You can make those concoctions 0 mana with the Ghoulist Alchemist. Of course, you have Double Step, Shadow Demise. This deck does not spend a lot of mana, and it just creates ridiculous value, ridiculous burn, and creates very uninteractable minions. A deck I loathe, but it's still really good. So play it and learn it while you can, because it might get hit yet again. Because yeah, at the highest ranks, Rogue and Demon Hunter are absolutely out of control. And speaking of that, we'll talk about Quest Spell Demon Hunter. Again, another deck that is, if you take a look, I'll show again here, the top legend meta is just Rogue and Demon Hunter, and this is a big part of it. Your quest deck that basically, you just want to cheat out any of these cheap spells, get it out with a Silver Moon Arcanist to get a bunch of damage, or Lady Athena to do insane damage, and you got Jace to recast your spells. Some people have even cut Jace and put Abusive Sergeant in to put it on your Lady Athena to give it 4 attack for even more damage, and this deck, if played well, can can kill your opponent consistently turns like 5 through 7, and Sinful Brand is in here as it works very well with Coordinated Strike, but in particular Feldori Warband, which gives you 4 1/1 rushers, which each one does 2 damage each single time. And after almost 3 years, I'm correct, Feast of Souls is a playable card, and it's really good with all those tokens when it's often 1 or 0 mana, draw 4 or 5 cards. Another extremely uninteractive deck that cheats a ton of mana. I don't like it. I think it's probably going to get nerfed as well, so be aware of that. But yes, very powerful and dominating the game at high ranks. And lastly, I'll recommend a Deathline deck like I always like to do, and the best one in the game right now is Frost Deathline. A list I got Legend with most recently, it cut out Blood Mage Thalnos and the 3-mana weapon, the discount stuff, just for more early game pressure with Vicious Slither Spear. Just gives me presence, chip damage, and all of that. But basically, you want to burn your opponent out, whether it be with your Glacial Advance, your Howling Blast, freeze the board repeatedly with Frostworm's Fury, which you can copy with your Lady Death Whisper. Of course, you have Astalor in here, because why would you not? And yes, it's a very non-interactive deck, very frustrating to face when you're being frozen over and over. It reminds me of good old burn decks like Ungoro Burn Mage, Discover Mage, or even Soul Fragment Demon Hunter. 2 of my favorite decks of all time. I really do enjoy a good burn deck, but man, freezing the board over and over really does feel cheap, I gotta say, but this is a very effective deck. If you're trying to get this 1,000 win portrait up there, I can get some pretty quick wins, and like I said, I got to Legend with it, so it could definitely climb. Moving on to Wild, where things are very, very aggressive still post Renathal nerf, and well, one of the best decks out there, even Shaman, not much has changed here. Still kind of the same old, same old. Some people throw Astalor in here. You can consider that. This is more of just a generic totem build. Really nothing new in here. Devolve, I guess you could, yeah, slot in Astalor or whatever you're feeling like, but yeah, you slam totems, you copy them with your Splitting Axe, you buff them with Stonemright, you can cheat out a Gigan Totem, a Thing from Below, and buff it with your totemic spells. Nothing too crazy, nothing too new here. Frostbite is more of a tech option to beat up on the other spell decks. You can even honorably kill your own minions to try and disrupt those style of decks, so that's there, or it's just additional burn. Really good deck, very popular deck. And speaking of very popular, Secret Mage, again, nothing too much has changed here. Incredibly good deck that just cheats out secrets like nobody's business, whether it's a Cabal Lackey on 1, an Anonymous Informant, and of course you have like board clears in here with Chatty Bartender, Arcane Flak Mage. You could consider taking Oasis Ally out and run a card like Flame Ward if you're running into a lot of aggro decks and all of that, but it's Secret Mage. If you've seen it, you played it, you know how it works, it's still really good, and again, not a ton has changed, and no Astalor, because that's just way too damn slow for a Secret Mage. And instead of recommending Pirate Rogue for the bajillionth time, I will recommend the deck Corvette, I think finished top 10 Legend with. Edwin Rogue, yeah, that's right. Even though this graveyard was nerfed, it's still good enough in Wild to be top tier, and it's very similar to the old deck where you just build a giant board really early with the graveyards, lock your opponent out with Loatheb, you can Shadow Step it 3 times now with the Shadow of Demise. It's nothing too different, but you gotta Astalor in here, because why not? My god, look at these numbers. 60% of decks in Legend. Has Astalor had its time? I got a feeling that's gonna happen, even though I actually don't really have a problem with it outside of Bran Bronzebeard, who just always dodges the bullet. But regardless, Miracle Rogue, definitely a deck you can try out. I do have a Renathal recommendation for Wild. Memnarch finished top 10 Legend with Renathal, Shadow Priest to try and counter all the aggro decks. It can beat up a little bit of combo decks because you have some disruption in here. Theotar, you have the brand new Sister Svalna for infinite value and all of that. You also have Astalor. I'm sorry, I'm a broken record, but that's like one of the new cards. It's in like every deck. But yeah, you want to try some Renathal, Reno Priest. If you have a lot of these cards, go for it. Wouldn't go out of my way to craft it, because Lord knows it probably isn't going to work out super well with only having 35 health. But still, if you like some Reno Priest and you want a list to work off of, I think this is as good as it's going to get. And lastly, I will leave off with a deck I definitely don't recommend crafting. I play this a lot. in the very, very, very dumpster of Legend after losing countless games achievement hunting, but I had a really good win rate for quite a while, and it's just a fun board-based deck. It's even triple Unholy Deathlight. Swagwar popularized the first list. I basically put in some Haunted Creepers in there instead of the Necrotic Geist, but overall, it's just you spam a lot of different 2-drops to stick some stuff on the board. Grave Strength, kill your opponent. You got a lot of infused cards in here, like Murlocula and Priest of the Deceased. They're actually pretty good. They're hard to remove, and yeah, you try and kill your opponent. You have Sylvanas in here because why not? And Lord Marrowgar for your late game, and of course, Astalor Bloodsworn. If you haven't crafted this card, why haven't you? The worst thing that's going to happen is they'll nerf it. But regardless, this deck's really fun. I don't know if you're going to have a lot of success climbing with it, but it just reminds me of kind of classic Hearthstone. Playing for board, incremental value, not much mana cheating, very limited draw, but it worked out for me, and I just had a blast. And again, you're looking for that 1,000 or 500 wins, or just any wins with Deathlight, give it a go. So those are my deck recommendations for this month. Hope you guys have some good climbs, and we'll have the Zeddys tomorrow, and maybe we'll start making some predictions on nerfs, because I would think we're gonna have some within a week or so. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. Stay salty, my friends.